Hello, dear friend. In this video, you will learn about the upcoming full moon in Aries and Libra. It's happening on the 20th of October, and it's interesting that it's 2 days after Mercury and Jupiter have turned direct. So the good news is that things should be going back to normal with Mercury going direct, with Jupiter also going direct. But again, we are still in the zone of intensity and changes. Plus, the truth is that this full moon can be quite intense as well. The reason is because Pluto and Mars are also engaged and strongly triggered by the full moon. Mars will be in conjunction with the Sun, and Pluto will be squaring all of those planets. So squaring the Sun and Mars on one side and then squaring the Moon. And what we have is the configuration called tau-square. So basically the full moon will be part of a tau-square with Pluto. And the focus point or the apex of the tau-square is Pluto. So we really need to pay close attention to this planet. But before that, let's talk about the degrees. So the full moon is on the 28th degrees in Aries and Libra. The moon is in Aries, the sun is in Libra. So first of all, the energy of those two signs is strongly accentuated, and this is the axis of relationships and interactions. Aries represent our individuality, our actions, our independence. It's the strong force. On the other side, Libra is the gentleness. It's the kindness, the compassion, the gentle approach and attitude, the politeness. So there is, as usual, a significant difference between the two energies of the full moon, but this is also the time when we can find the balance. If generally you tend to go into one of those extremes, maybe reacting more in an aggressive way when you feel threatened or mistreated, or feeling like you always need to fight and overcome challenges and be like, a warrior all of the time, that's one case. The other case is that other people have the opposite problem. They feel like they always need to make the compromises. They always need to be the good ones, kind of like people pleasers in a way. And of course, both of those extremes are just coping mechanisms. This is the way we have learned to handle with things and difficulties. So the point is not to judge yourself if you're in one of those polarities, but it's more about finding the balance. First of all, of course, it comes through awareness. So recognizing which of those tends to be closer to you. And it doesn't mean that you need to be like 100% of the time in this polarity. We all tend to, go back and forth, but usually you will find that one of those tends to be like closer to you, whether you are more in a fight mode or pleaser mode. Shortly, of course, there are more to this, but if we want to use just one word, I guess that would be it. So which of those is more familiar and feels safer for you? And would you like to bring the balance? Would you like to maybe change it a little bit, or just, again, get closer to a more harmonious state? It doesn't mean that if you are very polite and gentle, you need to switch into being aggressive and fighting. Absolutely not. It means finding a comfortable place for yourself where you know that you can defend yourself, and if you need to, you can get into, even if it needs to be a fight mode, but you don't need to be in this all of the time. And you also know that you can be kind and polite when you want to. So I guess just learning how to embrace both of those and trying to avoid the extremes, just kind of like being more closer to the middle. And perfect harmony is impossible, so we cannot be like exactly at the middle of those. But we don't need to. What we need here is improvement, just changing something in order to feel better. So again, don't think that it has to be all or nothing. Actually, this strategy usually doesn't work. What works better is focusing on improvements. So again, if you are more into the fight mode, just allow yourself to be a little softer, even if it's just for a certain time when you are, for example, on your own, just embracing this energy. And again, if you are the opposite, if you tend to be over gentle or kind, or like allowing others maybe to take advantage, perhaps you need to learn to set boundaries or defend yourself when you need to, which doesn't mean that you need to be harsh or aggressive, but you can step up for yourself. So those themes are very important, not only because we have the full moon in Aries-Libra as signs, but because, as we said also, Mars and Pluto are part of this full moon. And Mars and Pluto are very close to a square. Basically, it's an applying square, which is exact a couple of days after the full moon. So the energy is building up. And this energy is also about some kind of battles. And there are all kinds of battles that we are having with others and with ourselves. And that may include also having the battle with not being over kind or over gentle when you don't want to be, like, fighting with the pleaser mode. This is totally relevant as well. Or it could be the more obvious, like external, outer battle position. But this is very important to, really acknowledge this and bring your awareness and hopefully transform it if you feel ready for it. So full moons are great for letting go. Again, if you recognize one of those patterns in yourself and you want to transform it, it's a great time to focus on that energetically and let it go as much as you are ready to do at this point. Again, don't try to do it 100%. It's really not necessary. On the other side, Pluto is in Capricorn. So there might be also some kind of struggles, especially on a social level or when it comes to some kind of government or institutional decisions. There could be tension coming from this as well. And Pluto can be very harsh when something needs to symbolically die. When something is very old and it just needs to be restructured, Pluto can bring this intense destructive energy. So, if there are old principles, rules, restrictions, even laws which are outdated in a way, we need to get rid of those, like let them go. And it may come in a more unbalanced way because there is a tau-square, so we cannot pretend it's not there. But what we can do is open for the change and the transformation. And again, energetically, it's very intense, but those are the times of real change. And change can, of course, help us to move forward. So overall, the full moon is very intense. It may trigger some anger issues, some power issues, again, extremes like fight mode or pleaser mode, but we need to find the balance. And the good news is that there is support coming from Jupiter. If Pluto is squaring the full moon, Jupiter is actually having positive aspects with the full moon. So we may expand our worldview, and at the end of the day, this could be a positive shift. And there is growth in it. That's very important. Even if it feels difficult and painful, underneath there is a growth opportunity, and that's huge. So allow your mind to guide you, open up for new things, for inspiration, and know that it is for the good. There is a possibility to expand and to eventually be happier and more successful, even if it feels too intense right now. And it's very important also to find what is triggered in your chart. If you have one of those signs accentuated, Sun in Aries or Libra, or Ascendant in Aries or Libra, or other planets in those signs, of course, this full moon will be very important. And we may also look at the fact that the full moon is in the last degrees, which are considered to be critical from one side, but also the signs of the degrees of transition. So again, it's kind of like solving something from the past, letting something go, preparing to move forward. And it's really a valid question because Mercury has just turned direct at this point. So we are preparing to make a shift. The Sun is preparing also to shift into a new sign a couple of days after this full moon. So it seems like this may feel like a storm in a way, but then there's something new coming after it. So there is not so much stuckness, or we may not stay too long in this state. So it may be intense, but I think that shortly after that, things are moving in a new direction. So hopefully this full moon will allow us to get rid of the things that we no longer need, to make some positive shifts and transformations. And also very important to have more awareness, to expand our minds about what we are doing in the areas of relationships, or when it comes to our role in this, when it comes to independence and dependence or codependence. And when we have the awareness, it's always easier to make the shifts and changes. So let me know what is triggered in your chart. I would love to know your questions also. Please write them in the chat below. And if you like this video, if you find it helpful, please make sure to give it the thumbs up. And I will see you very, very soon.